Okay, so my main camera was actually dead today, so I'm going to give you just a little cell phone update. My goal after work today was to get the rear end back in, so that's all done. We got the rear end back in. Last video, a couple videos we did, the reinforcement of the torque boxes and the subframe connectors, so that stuff's all done. So I did go ahead and weld up the axle tubes, and then started mocking up the motor. So I got all the accessories off, the motor plate off, and I'm just starting to mock up the motor. So I'm actually using reference points from a very similar car. If you remember the last track video when I took the Ranger to the track, there was another Mustang that was there that looked pretty close to identical to this one. I'm using all of the same reference points for where his motor is placed. That one's actually kit, so it's in like proper position. And I'm just kind of referencing where his is and the measurements, and going to ballpark that stuff and get it close to where it needs to be. This motor was pushed back really, really far into the firewall. They're doing that because it has a stock K-member and it needs to clear that oil pan. So what I'm going to do is end up notching out the K-member, and I'll weld a plate back in there so we can get some clearance and bring the motor forward about 2 to 2.5 inches. So it's a little bit hard to see, but try to reference it. So the bigger hole's there, and a little bit farther forward is where the transmission is now. So it is about 2 inches farther forward. And we do have a little bit more clearance and room to work back here on the back side. So before, the passenger side head was actually pressed against the firewall. You can see this area here, this little divot in this section was actually where the corner of the head was rubbing into the firewall there. And you can actually see a little bit of damage on the head where it's all rounded over from rubbing into the firewall. So we're going to move it a little bit farther forward. Not too far, but just enough to get like a couple fingers in there. Sometimes 2 is all you need. So that should be good for placement. We'll get it a little bit lower, kind of leave it where it is, and that should be good. We got plenty of room up front for the turbos and everything, and that'll be the next video. So we'll be cutting out the K-member, welding up some mounts. These are the mounts I got for. They're just like a universal weld-in LS mount, and it's like $25 or $30 or something for these on eBay. This will be the 3rd time I've used a set like this. This is actually the same set that I have in this truck here, the Ranger. And this one made 1,000 horsepower on like 26 pounds of boost, so the mounts work. Factory mount section was actually cut out of this one already because it was motor plated. So we might have to weld a little bit back into there, or it may actually just be enough to kind of go right to here, because there's the motor mount bolt hole, and that might actually just work pretty good there. So yeah, what I usually do is just mount the plate to the motor and then kind of bolt these things on, and then I use just like a cardboard template usually and trace it out, trace it onto here, cut it, and it's a pretty simple process. So that'll be in the next video, so subscribe and stick around. Tell your friends. I'll get this thing going pretty soon.